We could have killed you.
Maybe you should have.
If there's one game I've been hyped for since its announcement, it would be The Last of Us Part 2. Every time they delayed the game, I was heartbroken, but more hype crawled inside me. And while discourse online caused slight hesitation, I was headstrong in being excited for my next adventure with Joel and Ellie. Before I start this review of The Last of Us 2, I want to briefly discuss my thoughts on the first game. Like most people, I think the story, the atmosphere, the sound, and the music were beyond exceptional. However, the gameplay was mediocre with its repetitive stealth sections, more artificial than intelligent AIs, and terrible UI. I don't remember the game for this.
You ready?
Yeah.
I'll cover you. Get the angle on them.
But for this.
Sarah. Baby. Don't do this to me, baby. Don't do this to me, baby.
And that's something worth taking into account for a sequel to a beloved game. Does it reimagine or fix gameplay, and does it live up to the story of the original? Well, let's get into it. I've decided to break this review into two parts: game and story. The game section will focus on non-spoiler stuff like gameplay, visuals, and sound, while the story will focus entirely on story, so it's going to be chock full of spoilers. I will provide a reminder when that comes around. First up are things I like. The visuals are a step above the rest. At first I was a bit skeptical. Some of the beginning scenes really looked bad compared to the trailers and the teasers. However, I soon came around to realize that I was blind. The Last of Us 2 looks like a true AAA title with its gorgeous atmosphere. Lots of good environments like the valleys and the city. Gosh, the city of Seattle looks so lived in, like the world is a character unto its own. I took plenty of pictures of some of my favorite moments and scenes that I was so blown away by. And the lighting, the lighting in this game is so crisp. Like, there's a section where you're in the dark, complete darkness, and only have a light, and just the light bouncing off of the trees and the pure blacks and everything. It just looked so good. Like, oh, it's amazing. And honestly, just like everything looks good, not just the light. Like, I really like the light in the game, but there's just so much that is good about this game. Like the rain dripping off of all the trees, the snow blizzards, and this crashing storm of the sea. Like, it is truly a marvel to behold, and one of the better looking games to end the current console generation. On top of the visuals, the sound design and the music are stellar. Like, holy shit, this game sounds amazing. The sound design team needs to get a fucking raise. Like, gunshots, breaking glass, jumping, walking, everything sounds so good. Everything sounds like it has impact. Like, you need a good pair of headphones to understand how awesome the sound design is in this game. And on top of that, the music is just, it is just beautiful. Really sets the mood for every scene. It truly complements the visuals of The Last of Us 2. Whether it's prominent or subtle, Gustavo Santaolalla fills my ears with sweet music to amplify the emotions I should be feeling in every scenario. I'm glad I pre-ordered this game to get the soundtrack because it's definitely worth an extra listen. Now I'm on to things that I disliked. I'm a huge proponent of The Last of Us featuring lackluster gameplay. It wasn't fun to play. The repetitive stealth and boring AIs and all the low stakes just weren't worth playing. Even on hard levels, like for me, I felt like I could just go in guns blazing and shooting up the whole place and everything still came out fine. The Last of Us 2 isn't any different. Most encounters were all the same. Kill enemies and repeat. And it's really immersion shattering when your allies walk past enemies and don't get caught, but if you do, bam, into an engagement. Like, it's so goddamn boring. Like, those 20 hours of gameplay were not well spent. Puzzles were also not engaging. I would get lost in some sections due to poor level design / guidance, It came to my attention, though, later on that I could put a waypoint down in the options menu, but as a developer, if you believe your player will get lost, then either make the waypoints a part of the game or simplify your levels, which I understand is a double-edged sword, but it's just so confusing sometimes. Just overall, there's no improvement to the original game, and honestly, I'm not that surprised. At least some of the set pieces broke up the monotony of the tired gameplay. Oh, and one other thing. Now on to the story. Honestly, this was hard to figure out. Before sitting down to write the review, I watched a ton of other reviewers and their thoughts, but I just couldn't figure out the words to describe my experience. So a friend asked me my thoughts on the game, and after some time and some thought, they kind of came up with the word empty. Empty is a good word to describe my experience with this story. I don't dislike it, it's just... How about I explain the story? Ellie is a playable character, and she's on a revenge mission to kill Abby. Abby is a playable character on a revenge mission and successfully kills Joel. The consequences of Joel's actions in the prior game are explicit. He doesn't deserve to live a selfish life after taking away the world's only hope. And while most of Abby's party agrees with that sentiment, she's only there to avenge her father, the doctor who holds up a knife to Joel in the hospital room. You travel throughout Seattle so the two can meet up face to face, and they try to build this confrontation due to that kind of gameplay. And for the first 10 hours you play as Ellie, and then the next 12 you play as Abby. It creates this stark mirror effect. While Ellie's story is entirely new to the series, Abby's story is similar to Joel's story from The Last of Us. At first it seems like a basic revenge story beating you over the head that revenge isn't worth it, but it's not. If you combine the story from the last game with this, it gives natural consequence to Joel's actions. A game entirely about power will result in its sequel being entirely about how people deal with that power, and more so, violence. Ellie kills all of Abby's friends in her pursuit to find Abby, and over time, Ellie comes to not wanting to live with the guilt, while Abby gets her just desserts for completing her quest to kill Joel, but there's more sympathy than apathy there. Abby isn't an entirely bad person, she just wants her father back and her innocence back. To me, the game accomplishes that in its narrative. It's a bit long, but it gets the point across. Revenge is meaningless if it means losing the people you love. And at the end of the game, Ellie no longer has anyone to be with. Her love interest leaves, and Tommy cuts ties with her completely. Abby loses her friends, and due to overexcitement about a new future, she loses track of the Fireflies and hurts her only friend. There is a lot to criticize, like the pacing going at a snail's pace or the unoriginal story, but looking at the original game and the new game as one whole, Naughty Dog is trying to say that selfish acts only end in ruin, and that ruin can be further tainted by the consequences. Ellie's character is directly influenced by Joel's lie at the end of The Last of Us 1. Her actions in the second only make that explicit. She's a monster only out for herself. I think that's why empty is a good way to describe this game. I was rooting for Ellie the entire time leading up to launch, but to see her character deteriorate as the story progressed hurt. She accomplishes nothing in her pursuit for justice, but at what cost? No one cares for her, just like Joel. At the end of the day, The Last of Us 2 will be remembered. Whether it's for good or for bad, no one will forget their experiences with this game, leading and following to launch. For me, it was a positive experience. I really don't like wasting my time on boring game loops, but the enjoyable story kept me hooked for hours on end. Playing through Abby's section actually made me think about this game's next installment, if there is one. I would hope it's an anthology setting, like Black Mirror. I'd love to see more different stories coming out of this universe, because I actually really like the world and the politics of it all, and seeing where it could actually go, besides just Ellie and Joel's story. I would recommend this game to anyone who has played the first, and would encourage new players to this game and its predecessor. Overall, it was a good time. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and hope to see you in the next video. Thanks.